Am I the asshole for kicking out my cousin after he tried to steal my life? A few months ago, I got a message that made me pause mid-scroll. It was from my cousin Derek. We hadn't spoken in years. Not since our grandmother's funeral, actually, and even then, it was just a polite nod from across the room. He looked strung out back then, jaw clenched, eyes hollow like he hadn't slept in a week. That was 3 years ago. Derek and I were close when we were kids. I mean, as close as two cousins can be when one of them was always getting into trouble and the other one was the quiet type. I was the latter. He was the one who once tried to skateboard off my parents' shed roof to see what would happen. What happened was a broken wrist, a half-torn trampoline, and a whole summer grounded. But that's how Derek was. Always trying something stupid and reckless. Always bouncing between extremes. Anyway, the message was short. Just, "Hey man, long time. Can I talk to you for a sec?" Kinda urgent. Something about it felt heavy. Not just the words, but the fact that it was him reaching out after so long. I debated not answering. I had a decent thing going, peaceful, quiet life. No drama. And Derek was the human embodiment of a storm cloud. But curiosity got the better of me. I answered. What followed was a 20-minute phone call where Derek explained, in the vaguest way possible, that he was in a rough patch. Said he needed a place to crash for a week, maybe less. Promised it was just until he got back on his feet. He didn't go into detail, and I didn't press, though maybe I should have. All I knew was he didn't have a job, didn't have a place, and apparently didn't have anyone else willing to help. Here's where I need to pause and give you some context. I live alone in a 3-bedroom house. It used to belong to my grandfather, Pops we called him, who passed away last year. He left the place to me, along with Max, his golden retriever. I work remotely doing back-end dev work for a software company, which means I rarely leave the house unless I'm walking Max or grabbing groceries. My life is quiet, predictable. I like it that way. So when Derek asked to stay, my gut said no. But guilt is a hell of a thing, and so is family pressure. About an hour after Derek's call, my aunt, his mom, called me. I hadn't talked to her in months either. She's got this way of making everything sound like a soap opera. Said Derek had just hit a few speed bumps, and that I'd be doing the family a huge favor. Even dropped a Pops would have wanted you to help him. That one stung, so I said yes. Mistake number 1. I spent the next day cleaning out the guest room. It had mostly turned into a storage dump for the stuff I hadn't figured out what to do with. Old gym equipment, unopened Amazon boxes, a weird painting Pops bought at a garage sale that looks like it watches you across the room. I moved it all into the 3rd bedroom and picked up some extra groceries. Cheap stuff mostly. Ramen, cereal, a few frozen pizzas. I figured Derek wasn't going to be picky. I even took a day off work to help him get settled in. He arrived the next morning in a beat-up Civic that looked like it had been held together with duct tape and prayers. The front bumper was zip-tied on. The inside was stuffed with clothes, bags, and a milk crate full of tangled phone chargers and loose change. Derek looked rough, gaunt, pale, like he hadn't had a decent meal or sleep in weeks. He gave me this half-smile, half-grimace when I opened the door, and the smell hit me almost immediately, like old sweat, cigarettes, and something else I couldn't place. Max growled when he saw him, and Max never growls. That should have been red flag number 2, but I brushed it off. Dogs are weird with new people sometimes. Maybe it was the smell. I helped him carry his stuff in, showed him the guest room, gave him the Wi-Fi password, and told him to make himself at home. He nodded, mumbled a "thanks, man," and then collapsed on the bed face first like he hadn't touched one in weeks. I left him alone for the rest of the day, figuring he needed rest. Later that night, I made some spaghetti and knocked on his door. No answer. I figured he was asleep. He wasn't. I found out later he'd left through the back door and wandered off into the neighborhood for a few hours. When he came back, he was jumpy, eyes darting around. Kept saying he needed fresh air. I shrugged it off. People cope differently. Maybe he had anxiety. Maybe he just needed time. But I noticed something strange the next morning. My wallet, which I always leave on the kitchen counter, was moved. Nothing missing, just moved. Not enough to make me confront him. just enough to make me wonder. That feeling? It would become my daily companion. The next few days were like living with a ghost. Derek barely left the room during the day. He'd emerge around 2 or 3 a.m. to raid the fridge. I'd find dirty plates in the sink with food crusted on them like they'd been left out for hours. The milk kept disappearing. So did the protein bars I kept in the pantry. When I asked him about it, he'd just smile and say, "Yeah, man, I've just been eating late. Hope that's cool." I said it was fine, but it wasn't. Then came the bathroom incident. One night I went to brush my teeth and found my toothbrush wet. Not damp, wet, like someone had just used it. I knew I hadn't, and I sure as hell hadn't left it dripping. I confronted him the next morning, trying to be polite. "Hey, you didn't use my toothbrush, did you?" He looked at me like I was the crazy one. "What? No, dude, that's disgusting." I stared at him for a long second. His eyes didn't waver, but something about the way he said it felt off. Too defensive. I dropped it, bought a new toothbrush, and kept it in my bedroom from then on. By the end of the first week, Derek hadn't looked for a job, or even pretended to. When I asked him about it, he got real vague. Said he was waiting on a call. Said he had a few things in the works. When I pressed, he'd changed the subject. That's when I noticed the other thing. He never took off his backpack. Even inside the house. Even when he slept. It was always zipped tight and on his back or beside him on the bed. I thought maybe it was just paranoia. Maybe he had something valuable in there. Or maybe he was hiding something. Then, on day 10, yes 10, not 7 like he said, I woke up to shouting. It was 3 a.m. Derek was in the backyard, pacing back and forth, yelling into his phone. I cracked the window to hear. "I told you I don't have it. Stop Andy calling me." Paused. "No, screw that. You come find me if you're so brave. You think I'm scared of you?" Another pause. Then a chilling sentence. "I'll bury you before you touch me again." I froze. Max started barking, tail stiff, ears pinned back. By the time I got outside, Derek had already hung up and was lighting a cigarette with shaking hands. He looked at me like he hadn't realized I was there. "What the hell was that?" I asked. "Just a stupid ex-drama. Don't worry about it." Drama? That wasn't drama. That was a threat. The next morning, I found a burner phone in the trash. Like literally a flip phone. One of those prepaid ones. The battery was missing. I asked Derek about it. He claimed he'd never seen it before. Right. Later that day, my neighbor, a retired schoolteacher named Mrs. Jenks, texted me to ask if everything was okay. Apparently, she'd seen Derek arguing with a man in a black hoodie outside my house around 4 a.m. I checked my camera feed. Sure enough, there was grainy footage of some guy walking up to the porch, talking to Derek, and then walking away. I still don't know what they said, but I know Derek lied when I asked. "I was just out for a smoke," he said. I showed him the video. He went quiet for a long second, then just muttered, "That's no one. Just forget it." Forget it? I should have kicked him out right then and there, but I didn't, and that was mistake number 2. Let's rewind to day 3. That's when the vibe of my house started to change. At first, it was subtle. Derek moved a few throw pillows on the couch, shifted the coffee table a bit. No big deal. Then, later that night, I walked into the living room and almost thought I was in the wrong house. He'd rearranged everything. Like, everything. The couch was now diagonally across the room. The bookshelf was tipped at an angle that made no architectural sense. He'd even moved the lamp to the floor. Said it was a minimalist touch. When I asked what the hell he was doing, he just shrugged and said, "The feng shui was off, man. The energy in here was all blocked up. You'll feel the difference, trust me." I didn't feel the difference. I felt annoyed, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was when I walked into my home office the next morning to find my entire setup unplugged. Laptop, monitor, router, external drives. You've got all this space, and you're acting like I'm stealing your oxygen. It's just a house, bro, relax. Okay. But then came the moment where I realized this wasn't just about inconvenience. This was about invasion. One afternoon, I was on a Zoom call with my team. I had my camera off, but my mic was on. I heard Derek in the background, laughing loudly, talking to someone on the phone. First, I ignored it. Then I heard what he said. "Yeah, I just moved in here. It's a nice upgrade. Big place, too. We've even got a backyard. We moved in. Our backyard." I muted myself mid-call, stormed out into the hallway, and pulled him aside. "What the hell are you doing?" He looked confused, like I was the one being irrational. "What? I'm just talking to a friend. Chill." I lowered my voice. "You don't live here, Derek. You're staying here. For a week. That's what you said." He laughed, then dropped this line. "You really gonna kick family out? You don't even need all this space." That sentence stuck in my brain like a splinter. It was the way he said it. Calm, confident, like he'd already made the decision for me. Like he'd mentally moved in and I just hadn't caught up yet. Red flag? No, this was a full-on red banner. Waving, on fire, with a marching band and a skywriter. Over the next few days, Derek's behavior escalated from mildly annoying to unhinged. He started answering the door like he lived there. One time I got an Amazon delivery, and I watched through the peephole as he greeted the driver with, "Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I'll tell my cousin it arrived." My cousin, like I was the guest. Then came the dog diet experiment. I walked into the kitchen one morning to find Derek cracking raw eggs into Max's food bowl. Not scrambled, not cooked, just raw, straight-up Rocky Balboa eggs, yolk and all. Max looked as confused as I felt. "Dude, what are you doing?" I asked. Derek didn't even look up, just said, "Dogs need primal diets. You ever seen a wolf eat kibble?" I stared at him. Max isn't a wolf. He's an elderly golden retriever with a sensitive stomach. Derek just waved me off like I was being ridiculous. Later that night, Max puked in the hallway. 3 times. At this point, I started keeping a journal. Not because I planned on posting it, just because I needed to document the madness. I was losing my grip on what was normal. Here's an actual entry from that week. Day 13. Derek tried to smoke a joint in the garage. When I told him I didn't allow smoking inside, he said, "Garage isn't inside." Max is avoiding him now. Honestly, same. I heard him say "my room" today while giving someone a FaceTime tour. I might actually go insane. But I wasn't crazy. Derek was just occupying my life like it was a rental. And it only got worse from there. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to the sound of laughter. Loud, chaotic laughter. Like a group of people watching a stand-up special at full volume. I got out of bed, peeked into the living room, and found 3 strangers sitting on my couch, passing around a vape and eating chips straight from the bag. Derek was in the middle of them, telling a story about how he once talked down a cop during a traffic stop. "Hey!" I snapped. "What the hell is going on?" They all looked at me like I was the intruder. Derek stood up, grinning. "Chill, man. These are just some friends from the gym." Gym? He didn't even go to a gym. I told them all to leave. Right then, Derek got pissed. "They're not even being loud," he argued. "You woke me up. You're so sensitive, bro. You need to get laid or something." That's when I lost it. "You need to leave. All of you. Tomorrow." Derek's grin dropped. His friends stood awkwardly, grabbing their stuff. One of them tried to fist bump me on the way out. I ignored him. Derek didn't say anything that night, just stared at me like I'd betrayed him. The next morning, I found a note slid under my bedroom door. Just a scrap of paper that read, "You're pushing away the only family you have left." That's when I realized something scary. He actually believed this was his home now, and I was just a roadblock. I could feel the tension building after that, like the air in the house had changed. Max stayed closer to me, like he sensed something was wrong. Derek barely spoke to me unless it was sarcastic or passive-aggressive. He stopped doing basic hygiene things, too. Dishes piled up. Laundry smelled like mildew. He even left food wrappers in the couch cushions. I found a half-eaten burrito wedged behind a throw pillow. The worst part? I felt like a prisoner in my own home, like I had to tiptoe around him to avoid conflict. I started locking my bedroom door at night. I kept my work laptop hidden when I wasn't using it. I even began researching local. This wasn't going to end with a polite goodbye. By week 2, it was clear Derek had no intention of leaving. No bags packed. No job prospects lined up. No sense of urgency. Instead, he was comfortable. Too comfortable. I was halfway through my workday when I walked into the kitchen for some coffee and saw him at the table, sipping a smoothie like he didn't have a care in the world. On the table in front of him, a printed copy of a job application. To my company, not a similar company, not even the same industry. My company. "Hey, check it out," he said, grinning like he just solved world hunger. "I figured I'd apply where you work. We could be like work brothers." I blinked. "You're applying here?" "Yeah, man. Dream team, right? Same house, same company. Imagine the synergy." He even tried to fist bump me. I didn't return it. Let's pause right there. Derek has no experience in tech, no background in software. The job he applied for was a back-end developer position, my position. He didn't even read the description, just uploaded a resume he clearly made in under 5 minutes and called it a day. And then he dropped this line: "I put your name down as a reference. You'll back me up, right?" I laughed, out loud, not because it was funny, but because it was the only thing keeping me from snapping. "You want me to vouch for you? At the company I've worked at for 4 years? Where my boss already thinks I'm a quiet, reliable guy who doesn't bring chaos into his life." He just shrugged, sipping his smoothie. "Why not? Nepotism, bro. That's how it works." Took everything in me not to scream, but that wasn't the worst of it. No, that came a few nights later. It was a Thursday night. I just finished a brutal workday and was settling in for a quiet evening. Headphones on, candles lit, Max curled up by my feet, peaceful. And then I heard laughter, a woman's voice, clinking glasses. I walked out of my room and immediately stopped cold. There, on my couch, was a woman I'd never seen before, petting Max, sipping wine from my glass, and giggling at something Derek said. He saw me and waved like we were roommates and I'd just come home from class. "Yo, this is Jess. Jess, this is my cousin. He's chill." I forced a smile. "Hey," Jess smiled back. "I love this place. So cozy. You've got such a good eye." Before I could say a word, Derek leaned back and, "I swear to God," said, "Yeah, I try to keep it comfortable. I like a warm vibe. I'm kind of a homebody. I try to keep it comfortable." "He's a homebody?" I stood there in silence, pulse pounding in my ears, while this absolute sociopath soaked up praise for the home he didn't even own. Jess looked around and said, "I love how settled you are." And Derek just smiled, like he believed it. But the final straw, that came the next day. I had run out for a quick grocery trip, 20 minutes, tops. When I got back, the house was quiet. No music, no laughter, no signs of Derek's guests. And then I heard the closet door in my bedroom open. I froze. For a second, I thought someone had broken in. I stepped quietly down the hallway, rounded the corner, and there he was, Derek, standing in my bedroom, in front of my open closet, trying on my clothes. One of my button-ups was half on, hanging awkwardly off his shoulders. A pair of my jeans lay on the bed. He was holding up a pair of boots. My boots. I stared at him, stunned. "What the hell are you doing?" He turned casually, like it was no big deal. "Oh hey, you've got a better fashion sense. I figured I'd borrow something for the weekend. Got a second date with Jess." I walked over, took the shirt out of his hand, and said, calm, but firm, "Derek, pack your stuff. You need to go." He blinked, actually laughed. "You're being dramatic. I've got a job interview next week. Things are finally happening. You seriously want to mess up the momentum?" I was shaking. "Momentum? Derek, you don't live here. You don't get to bring people into my home, apply to my job, or try on my clothes like you're just making yourself at home." He stepped forward, real casual, almost smug. "This place is big enough for both of us. You act like you're doing something special. It's a house, man. Get over yourself." That's when I snapped. No yelling, no swearing, just clarity. I pointed to the door. Out, today. I don't care where you go, but you're not staying here one more night. He tried to protest, started pulling the family guilt trip again. Pops would want us to stick together. You're all I've got left, blah blah blah. But I wasn't hearing it this time. I handed him a duffel bag, dumped his hoodie and charger in it, and told him he had 3 hours. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just made it clear. This was no longer a negotiation. You'd think that would be the end, but Derek didn't leave quietly. Oh no, he made sure to go out with one last petty, chaotic bang. So let me set the scene. After I caught him in my room, going through my closet like it was a department store dressing room, I told him he needed to leave. Not asked, told. And I gave him 24 hours, not out of kindness, but because I didn't want to escalate things unnecessarily. I wanted to give him the dignity of walking out on his own terms. He didn't take it well. At first, he tried the usual deflection. Bro, come on. Don't do this. I've got that job interview next week. I repeated myself 24 hours. That's when he flipped. He grabbed his phone and called his mom, my Aunt Linda, and put her on speaker before I could walk away. Suddenly, I'm in the middle of a live performance titled, "How Could You Betray Your Own Blood?" starring Aunt Linda as the martyr and Derek as the poor, misunderstood soul. She's yelling into the phone like I'm not even in the room. He's your family. For God's sake. He's struggling. He just needs a chance. And you're kicking him out like a stranger. I said calm but firm. He can have support. Just not in my house. Click. She hung up. But she was not done. For the next hour, my phone blew up with messages. Texts from my aunt. Missed calls. A long voice message that I didn't even listen to. Then the texts started coming from other relatives. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Suddenly popping up like they were on Team Derek all along. Hey man, maybe you could have handled that better. Family comes first, bro. I heard you kicked Derek out over a shirt? Oh yeah, because that's what this is about. A shirt. Never mind the lying, the freeloading, the pretending to own my house, the applying to my job, the raw eggs he fed my dog, the women he brought over without permission, or the fact that he wore my boots on a second date like a sociopathic version of Cinderella. But fine, let them talk. I stayed quiet. I didn't post. I didn't explain. I just watched. Derek eventually started packing, but not all the way. He tossed some clothes into a duffel bag, grabbed his Oculus, of course, and his half-broken laptop. Then, like a final passive-aggressive flex, he left behind a trash bag full of clothes, 2 protein tubs, both open and leaking, and his gaming console, which I swear he thought I'd guard for him. Before leaving, he stood in the doorway and said, without a hint of irony, "You'll regret this. You're not a real man for kicking out your own blood." I said nothing. I closed the door behind him. The next morning, I changed the locks. And that should have been the end of it. Should have been. Instead, that's when the real chaos started. It began with a Facebook post. A long one. The kind that starts with, "I don't usually post stuff like this, but..." and ends with your entire family arguing in the comments section. Here's the gist. My cousin Kay, yeah, the one who stole our grandfather's house like a snake, just kicked me out with nowhere to go during a mental health crisis. All because I was trying to better myself. I applied to his job, cleaned his filthy house, and even helped his dog, who was clearly malnourished. And now, I'm on the street while he lives in a house he didn't earn, acting like he's better than the rest of the family. Just remember, blood doesn't mean love. So now I'm the villain. I stole the house. I abandoned him. And a few days later, I got a call from my job. Not from HR, thankfully, but from a friend in another department who'd seen Derek's application come through. "Hey man, didn't you say your cousin's name was Derek?" I sighed. "Yeah. Why?" "He put your name down as a reference, but under relationship, he wrote mentor. And under skills, he said he'd trained with you on back-end systems." I almost choked on my coffee. "Please delete that application from existence," I said. "Immediately. Already did. Just thought you should know." So, that's where we're at. Derek's out. The locks are changed. Max is healthy again, back to his normal kibble-loving self. I've blocked half of my extended family and learned which ones I can actually trust. I still haven't heard from Derek since the Facebook smear campaign, but I have heard rumors that he's couch surfing again. Same old pattern. Same storm, different address. As for me, I've never appreciated silence more, or solitude, or locked doors. Moral of the story? Sometimes the people who scream family first, the loudest, are the ones who treat you the worst. You're not heartless for protecting your space. You're not selfish for setting boundaries. And if anyone ever starts referring to your house as our place without paying a single bill, kick them immediately. And just when I thought it was over, he came back. It was a quiet afternoon. One of those golden hour moments where the sunlight hits just right and everything feels peaceful. I had just come back from walking Max, our usual route through the neighborhood, and I remember thinking, this finally feels like home again. And then I saw the car, parked directly across the street from my house. Same beat-up Civic, same zip-tied bumper. First, I thought it was a coincidence, maybe someone visiting a neighbor, but then the driver's side door opened, and out stepped Derek. My stomach dropped. He was wearing sunglasses like he was about to audition for a role he clearly wasn't qualified for, not unlike that job he tried applying to, and had this smug little half-smile on his face, like he was entitled to be there. I stood on the porch, Max at my side, leash still in hand. Derek walked to the edge of my yard and said, "I came for Max." First, I just stared, thought maybe I'd misheard him. Then he said it again. Grandpa wanted me to have him too. You know that. I swear, I laughed out loud. Not a nervous laugh, not a fake one, just a full, genuine what the actual F***K laugh. Because at that point, it had crossed every imaginable line into delusional territory. "Derek," I said, "get off my property, right now, or I'll call the police again." He took a slow step backward like he was thinking about it, then smirked and said, "This isn't over," and drove off. I stood there in silence for a good 5 minutes, Max staring up at me like, did we just have a boss fight? And you know what? I believed it wasn't over, because with people like Derek, people who manipulate, rewrite the narrative to suit themselves, it's never over. Not really. Not until you put up walls so high and so reinforced they stop trying to climb them. So here's what I did next. I installed cameras. Front yard, backyard, inside too. I contacted a lawyer for a legal consult just in case. No, I didn't want to escalate, but I needed to know my options. Fun fact, in my state, once a guest is asked to leave and does, any attempt to return without permission can be considered trespassing. I blocked Derek and Aunt Linda on everything. Phone, email, socials. I warned a few key family members in case he tried to spin another tale. And after that, I sat on the couch. I watched Max roll onto his back, tongue out, completely unbothered, and I felt relief. But then came the guilt. That's the part no one tells you about when you draw a hard boundary with toxic family. The after, the silence, the second guessing, the internal courtroom you hold against yourself, wondering if you were too harsh, too cold, too unforgiving. Because yeah, my house is peaceful again. My stuff is where it belongs. My food lasts longer than a day. My clothes stay in my closet. I don't worry about 2 a.m. visitors or Facebook smear campaigns. But sometimes, when everything goes quiet, that little whisper of guilt creeps in. Was I too harsh? Could I have handled it differently? What if he really needed help? And I don't have a perfect answer. All I know is, I offered a week. I gave a roof. I cleared out a room. I bought groceries. I took time off work. I let him in. And in return, he tried to take my job, my space, my name, my dog, and twist the family into thinking I was the villain. So maybe I wasn't harsh. Maybe I was just done. So, AITA, for kicking my cousin out after he tried to take over my life. Literally, for choosing my peace over his chaos. For protecting Max, my home, and my sanity. Some family members think I am. Some friends say I should have done it way sooner. and strangers on the internet. Well, I guess now's your turn. Let me know. I'm listening. But for now, I'm gonna take Max on another walk. Just the two of us. Peaceful, quiet, and locked behind a very solid front door.